Okay, so already you touched on a company like TVC Communications, and now I'm looking at what do a company like this rely on in times like this when revenue, when ad spend is on the low side?
Yeah, well, what you do in times like this, I think we spoke about it before, in terms of managing we reach out first and foremost to all our clients, and we let them know we're here for them. We emphasize the fact that we've got large audiences, particularly large audience at this point in time. We offer them flexibility. They require flexibility in these times when people are working from home. It's very hard to get work done. So we have found ourselves actually doing an awful lot more in terms of fulfilling the marketing role than oftentimes we would. We've had a client recently who is South African. A lot of their production facilities and their design services are in Johannesburg. They haven't been able, with the lockdown, to fill any of those. So we've taken those services in-house for them. So wherever we can, Tulu, we're helping media agencies, our clients directly to, I suppose, fulfill whatever briefs they have currently. The other big area, and you've been across this yourself, is the response to COVID-19 in Lagos has relied an awful lot on big private investors helping. We've seen mobile companies, we've seen big food companies, we've seen banks all come together and create this massive fund to help the federal government, and also to help the Lagos government to fulfill what they need to in terms of easing the pressure on people. Now, it's important that everybody understands what these companies are trying to do. Then they create advertising messages around COVID-19, and our role as media partners is to make sure those messages get through to the right people, and we do that with advertising, or we do it through corporate communications on our news or on our business programs, and that's where a lot of our effort has gone in the last number of weeks.
You put up an article lately talking about this, doing an overview of what you should expect post-COVID-19, talking about GDP of countries and all of that. Can you take us through what that message, what you're really trying to put out today?
Yeah, I can. But it's really, I suppose, look, this has been a global crisis. It's been a generational crisis. And now that we're a couple of months into it, everybody is taking stock, no matter what sector you're in, no matter what industry you're in. Everybody is taking stock, and by that I mean they're reviewing what's gone on in the past, how could things have happened better, etc. It has been my opinion and my view as a European, but yet as somebody who's worked in this market for 3 years, I've never really felt that the advertising industry is fulfilling anything like its real potential in this market. And what I'm advocating when people ask me my views and what's going to happen post COVID-19, and not only COVID-19, we're also in the midst of a huge oil shock in terms of the price of oil, for many reasons. First, it started out with the trade war between Saudi Arabia and Russia, and that has now been exasperated simply because the demand for oil has fallen through the floor with COVID-19. So with these two massive shocks, it's a time now to take stock and say, how do we come out of this? And I suppose people have been asking my view as an outsider and a European, and I have presented them with what I believe is a 5-step plan for making the advertising industry in this market more relevant and putting it on a path to growth.
Can we touch on one or two of them as we round up?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, very simply, I believe first and foremost, this industry is full of disparate bodies and disparate parts, all looking after individual stakeholders. I believe there needs to be a coming together of all the major stakeholders in this industry to set up an advocacy group for the advertising industry and to put together a strategic advertising plan for Nigeria with a clear roadmap. Secondly, there's no point in us having a roadmap unless we have a target. I believe we need to set a clear target for the size of the ad market we want. We sometimes fool ourselves that Nigeria is the biggest market in Africa, it's the biggest economy in Africa, South Africa lags behind it. In terms of the advertising sector, the market here is 450 million a year. That's 0.1% of GDP. South Africa's 2.6 billion. It's 6 times the size of here. So I believe the ad market underperforms here, and I think it should be contributing a lot more to GDP than it currently is. I think a more realistic number is the ad market here should be $1 billion per year in size. You know, now. We're not going to do this as an advocacy group on our own. I think the third thing we need to do is engage the ministers, the ministries, the federal agencies, and we need them to buy into the relevance of the advertising sector. And the only way we can do that is if we present a clear rationale as to why they should embrace advertising as a sector and why they should help fund the kickstart of the sector. There's been an interesting body of work done by Deloitte in Europe, and it talks really about the relevance and the power of advertising in Europe. And one of the key outtakes of that body of work was that for every euro spent on advertising in Europe, Deloitte found that it contributed 7 euros to the economy. So imagine this $1 billion fund that I talk about, that this market I believe should be its size. That could translate into a contribution to the Nigerian economy of $7 billion per year. I believe if you can present that case to the ministers and federal agencies, now they're on board. And why I want them on board is to create, fourthly, an advertising fund, a fund that kickstarts this advocacy group, this roadmap, and that fund would be used to invest in training, acquiring and getting and encouraging new people to come into the industry, and in technology. These are the biggest areas, the biggest challenges we currently have in the sector, and this is what's holding the sector back. The media and advertising industry relies on people. People are its assets. We're not investing in it. We're not investing in technology, in research, in ad programming, etc. And if we're not doing that, we can't expect to grow. It needs state help, and but we can't just put a begging bowl out there. We need to put a clear plan in place based on research in other markets, and we need to do research in this market. And finally, I believe at the end of this roadmap, if we get all the shareholders together, if we get ministers and government on board, etc., I'm talking about global. If we are the biggest economy in Africa, well then why then can we not be leaders in Africa in advertising, marketing and entertainment? And to do that, we need to be global. We need to have a Nigeria first view on everything. I absolutely contend that's the right thing to do, but we need to match that with the best that international has to offer. And to attract the best international firms, well then we have to give them tax incentives, we have to create tax-free zones, we have to allow 100% of the profits to be kept, we'll have to allow 100% ownership, all the things that you might see in an advertising or a media city in Dubai. But I believe if we have that vision, I believe if we have that coming together and that clear roadmap, that I fully feel that's where the Nigerian advertising market could be, and it needs to go there if it wants to have relevance and it wants to grow. Otherwise, we have seen 4, 5, 6 consecutive years of decline. This is going to be another year of decline, and before we know where we are looking at a very sorry state for the ad sector in Nigeria.
What's a general message to your clients, to advertisers generally?
My message is always one of optimism. I'm a huge believer in advertising. It is an incredible industry, a global industry. It's dynamic, it's innovative. We've got new media, we've got traditional media. As somebody who sells television and radio, I mean, what we've seen in COVID-19 is that audiences have grown. We've got 10 million viewers and listeners every day. If you want to get a message out there, you want to get out there quickly, cost effectively, TV and radio remains the opportunity to do that.
Thank you very much, Ronan Redmond, for your time.
Thank you, Tulu. Thank you.
That's our show today. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week for a fresh edition. Please stay safe.
Mayo as I bring you news from the epicenter, where it happens and when it happens, staying on top of every breaking story, minute by minute, right at the hour when the city gets busy and just before it sleeps. We're live from every angle with objective insight and analysis. TVC News, first the breaking news.
Let's talk about the coronavirus outbreak here in Africa. Well, it's the world's second largest continent. Over 1.2 billion people live here. So how do you get such a population to physically disconnect? How do you get people to regularly wash their hands when water is scarce? How do you get people to work from home when majority of Africans work in the informal sector?
People are dying and suffering.
Welcome to The Breakdown, BBC Africa's COVID-19 special program, helping you make sense of the crisis.
The people-oriented Central Bank of Nigeria goes for growth in the economy.
Additional emphasis will be placed on supporting greater growth of our economy and in reducing unemployment through targeted interventions in the agricultural and manufacturing sectors.
Get the latest from Nigeria's Apex Monetary Authority. Exclusive stories you cannot find anywhere else. Analyses and perspectives you can trust. Join me every Friday on this station for weekly updates from the Central Bank of Nigeria.
In a society where there's a high demand for accountability and the role of lawmakers called to question, watch as lawmakers show you what they do.
The Constitution itself provided the framework of governance. And what does it say? That the welfare of people shall be the primary responsibility.
What should constituents expect from their elected representatives?
Bring down the cost of education.
Go to my place, there's no road. There's no standing light.
What happens to constituency funds?
1 trillion naira has been appropriated for constituency projects.
Do they even know their representatives at the state and national assemblies?
I don't know, because I see nothing happening in my state, and it looks as if we don't even have a representative.
Join me, Maria Olashende, on Know Your Representatives.
If a pack of souvenir is 1,875 naira, how much will it cost to get for 750 guests?
1,406,250 naira.
Correct.
Your girl is very sharp.
She takes after her brother.
For years, cowbell milk has been building great minds and strong bodies.
Ma, me too. I like to have brain.
Cowbell, our milk.
Now available in evaporated milk. Evaporated just for you.
Our smiles have never been so uncertain. This weekend that seems to regenerate. We never imagined missing the music of our office printer. That time stopped does not mean our stories have. We are the brave ones that set aside self-interest for a common goal. One day, we will toast to this bravery in our favorite restaurants. Arm in arm, we will sing at every concert and never skip a beat. One day, we will reclaim our streets from the wildings that have borrowed it. Take back our fields from the bush that have rented it. We will discover new places. The gray clouds will roll away, and the sun will shine. Together, we will beat this and rebuild our economy. Till then, hold your position and stay safe.
When people turn on their TV for news, they want the facts, they want it straight, and they want the big stories of the day, right now. At TVC News, we know Nigeria is moving fast. There's a lot going on and a lot to take in. With News Bureau and reporters all over Nigeria, we capture the stories that matter first, fast, balanced, and accurate. That's why we are first with breaking news.